Hi, so this tutorial is to create your own earthenware pots, and for the purposes of today's video I've got this, and basically it's to show you that you can pretty much make something out of anything in terms of how sort of highly painted this is and what it'll end up looking like. I just got this from the charity shop for a couple of quid. Obviously it's not to my taste, but I'm probably going to be ruining someone's fun this Christmas by painting over it. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to make that into a really lovely earthenware jug. So basically what you need to do is you need three paints really. You could probably do it with two. I don't ever use primers. You could buy a sort of all-purpose primer and whip it over the jug or the vase or whatever you're using, and it would probably give you a really good base, but I don't do that. I just use what I've got left over. So I've got some leftover Dulux paint here, which is just normal emulsion, and I've also chosen two tester pots, which are these two sort of putty coloured colours, and that one is Dulux soft stone, and this one is pressed putty. So they're quite close in colour to each other. And I'm hoping that with a base coat of this grey underneath, it should look quite a natural colour. So first of all, I'm going to prop this up so that you can watch me paint this. And I'm going to whip some paint willy-nilly all over it. So literally just, this is just your base coat. So just slap it on quite thinly to start off with. Whoops! Don't paint the table like I am. Just paint all around. You don't have to worry too much about the first coat in terms of coverage, because we're going to come back and give it another coat. So just like that. Then when you've done the one side, you can turn it over and do the underside as well. So when you've completely covered your vessel, your jug, your pot, whatever you've chosen, in one coat, just leave it to dry. As you can see, it's pretty poorly covered, but that's fine, because now you've got that one layer on, the second layer will adhere to that one much easier. So just let that dry. I should think half an hour, 45 minutes is plenty. And then you can come back and slap on your second undercoat. Okay, so my jug is now pretty much dry. It's probably not 100% dry, but I have given it a quick blast with the hairdryer to speed things up, because I haven't got any patience whatsoever. One thing I have noticed now that the matte paint is on top, that I hadn't noticed before with the glossy ceramic glaze, is that mine has got funny blobs all over it in the ceramic, which I think probably were the snowflakes or snowballs on the pattern. Ideally, this is probably not brilliant, because it does look slightly random, but I'm hoping that once I've textured the paint, which I'm going to show you how to do now, you won't notice that too much. And anyway, for the purposes of this video, you'll get the general idea of what it should look like despite the blobs. The next stage really is to try and build some texture up. So I'm going to get the second layer is going to have the same paint that we used the first time, and I'm going to mix it with some plain old flour. So I've put about a tablespoon of flour in a tray here, and it's just normal plain flour. You can use self-raising, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to mix that with some paint, the same colour as the one I've been using. And that should give us a bit of texture. So I'll just stick this here while I mix this up. If you need to add a little bit of water, you can. You don't want it too gooey, but the idea is that you've got some thickness to it, which will make it look, when you start layering it on, like the authentic surface of an earthenware pot. So this is what's going to build up your texture. So it's quite gloopy, as you can probably see, once you've mixed it well and truly in. So you slap that on, and you don't have to be too precise with how you put it on. And straight away you can see that the texture's building up. So give it a good coat all the way around. On your handle, if you have got a handle, you might just have used a normal vase. You can even do this with a glass vase if you need to. The good thing about using a ceramic vase like this is that it's completely watertight. What I have found in the past with real authentic earthenware pots is sometimes they do leave a little bit of a leaky damp patch behind on your table because they're not completely watertight, I think, sometimes. Whereas at least if you're doing your own out of a ceramic pot or a glass vase, then you're pretty much guaranteed that there'll be no leaks. So they're almost better than the real thing. So as you can see, the texture is really building up quite nicely there. And actually you can't see my blobs quite so much because I haven't used a primer. Where I'm touching it, because it's still wet, it is fetching the paint off in places. So that will be fine. It'll just dry. I'm hoping you can see this because my camera positioning isn't brilliant. I'm just doing inside the neck. It doesn't really matter too much about going deep down inside the bottom of your pot, because obviously you'll be putting water and things inside there you're not going to see. But if you just go around the outer edges, then that's good. So I'll probably do this twice just to build up a nice layer of texture. It's up to you. It depends how many times coats you want to give it. But I'm going to wait for that to dry another 20 minutes, half an hour, and then I'll do it again. So what I've done now is I've mixed a little tiny bit, probably about half a tablespoon of the darker shade. So that one is the pressed putty, which is this one, into what was left of my texturing paint. And I'm just going to, even though it's not quite 100% dry, I'm just going to just dab it across in places and spread it out so that it leaves some of the grey showing through. And it just looks sparsely covered and mingles with the paint that you've got on there if it's still dry. I need both hands to do this because I'm going to have to hold on to the handle. So I'll just turn that off and then I'll come back. And that layer of paint, the dabbed on one, is dry. While it was still damp, I did actually just stipple round and spread it out a bit with one of these sponges, which is textured. Actually, that's got old dry paint on it from a previous project. Actually, it was from doing that mirror, which there's also a tutorial on if you have a look through. But it's dried, and actually it's just adding a bit more texture. And so I've basically gone round and feathered the paint so that it's all daubed lightly across the surface. And then I'm going to just do exactly the same, but with the lighter shade. So basically get a tiny bit on my brush. I'm going to dab most of that back off, because this last one is really just for adding a bit of light. So I'm putting a bit on, but dabbing it mostly off. I'll wipe most of it off onto the cardboard, and then literally I'm just gonna very lightly go over in both directions to give it a little last bit of texture, like so. I'm going to finish doing this holding. I can actually probably put you up here so that you can see what I'm doing. And you do that all around. And it just adds some highlights to what you've done. And makes it look a little bit more textured. So when you've done that and it's dried, you're pretty much there, and that's what it should look like. I will take some pictures with some stuff in it, but it looks pretty good really, considering how it looked originally. And you can do it with anything. I know I mentioned that before, but I mean, I've done here a lamp base, which I haven't quite finished yet, but that's a lamp base. That again was from a charity shop, and I think I paid £4 for it. It was nasty sort of ceramic, and I've just basically done the same thing to it, and it looks really lovely when the lampshade's on. I'll take some pictures and post those. So there you go. That's how to make your own earthenware pots, and I'd really like it if you do this project, if you'd post your pictures of your finished items onto the forum. That would be brilliant. Okay, thanks, bye.